doing tonight? My name is Bigbobbedboi and welcome to a hunter's guide to macros, mods, UI, and WeakAuras. This has been a long requested and long in the works guide. As per usual, I will put chapters here in case you're not interested in all the sections, although I'd say they're all pretty good because I put a lot of work into this for you guys. We'll cover the macros first, then the mods, then Hunter WeakAuras, and finally I'll go over my UI because I get asked about it a lot. Before we get lubricated and slip into those macros, do you like sharks? Do you like surfs? Then you'll love today's sponsor, Surfshark. Surfshark is a VPN and it is my VPN of choice. Why use a VPN, you might be wondering? Well, a VPN is the best way to keep your data from getting into the hands of people you don't want to have your data. When you go online with Surfshark, your IP address is concealed and encrypted. No shady companies, unscrupulous individuals, or unprincipled governmental bodies will be able to see it's you. Totally anonymous. While not made of rubber, polyurethane, lambskin, or latex, Surfshark is the kind of digital protection you need in 2021. Surfshark can also help with things that are not quite such a grave concern, like cranking Netflix and chill up to 11, or better yet, 30. That's right, 30. Ever wanted to watch a different region's Netflix because it has some dope shit not available where you're located? With Surfshark, not only is it possible, it's easy. Surfshark has servers in a multitude of countries, giving access to 30 different Netflix libraries. When I'm overseas, I use a VPN to watch the US Netflix, gotta keep up with my shows. Or even better, when I'm here in the US, I use Surfshark to watch the Japanese Netflix. Have you ever watched Trailer Park Boys with Japanese subtitles? It is phenomenal. Of course, this works on almost anything that is region locked: YouTube, news sites, even digital storefronts, not just Netflix. And possibly best of all, you can use Surfshark on an unlimited number of devices with just one account. You couldn't see it, but I just dropped my mic. Give Surfshark a try today. There are links in the description and the pinned comment. With my link, you'll save 83%. Yes, 83%. And get 3 months free. It's got a 30-day free trial, so why not try it? A massive thanks to Surfshark. Alright, now that we're good and lathered up, let's roll into the macros. There are a million different macros you could use. I'm going to cover ones I like to use, ones I think are most useful for people, and ones that I get asked about a lot. If there's some you really like to use and I didn't cover it, please feel free to put that shit in the comments. Now, I'm going to cover all the various misdirect macros first. There's quite a few ways you can macro misdirect. Here's the one I use most often. Pound. Yes, pound. Show tooltip, new line, /cast, target equals player name in brackets, misdirection. Target equals player name in brackets means it will cast misdirect on the player with that name. So put a player's name in there. I use this one in raids when I know specifically who my misdirect target is going to be, or if I'm going to run heroics with the same tank all day, it's pretty convenient. This totally replaces the weird ones you'll see with like /target player name, /cast MD, target last target. Don't need that weird shit. My more general misdirect macro is just a mouse over macro. Target equals mouse over in brackets. This means whatever my cursor is over is going to get my MD. Just be careful, you don't want to mouse over the wrong target and waste that MD. That shit can suck really bad. Focus target macro is also pretty common for MD. It'll be the same as the others, but target equals focus in the brackets instead. Kill command. Now, I don't use any kill command macros right now. On the beta, I used some and they seem to work fine. However, on live, I was getting some really weird queuing issues if I use them, especially with steady shot. I've had no problems putting them in with instant abilities, so like arcane shot. If you feel like doing it, you could macro kill command into instant skills like that, so pound show tooltip arcane shot /cast arcane shot /cast kill command. I use that one with no problems. Let's look at some pet stuff. A feed pet macro. I was surprised to learn that a lot of people really like to have this macroed. Just put the name of the food your pet will be eating /cast feed pet /use that food, so cleft hoof ribs in my case. But we're hunters, blessed by Hunter Jesus, so we can have a better feed pet macro like this /cast feed pet /use in brackets pet ravager cleft hoof ribs. And then we can do the same thing but with wind serpent and its pet, and then scorpid, whatever else pets you use. So in this case, if you have your ravager out, he'll eat the cleft hoof ribs. If your wind serpent is out, he'll eat the bladespire bagel. Just put in whichever type of pets you use in the food that they eat. One macro for all our pets and all our food. Hell yeah! And I've also started using an all-in-one pet macro, which I've grown to really like. This will call pet if you don't have one out, res your pet if he's dead, or mend your pet if he's out and not dead. Damn, now that I like. Hunter's Mark. I don't use a lot of macros for Hunter's Mark. In fact, I only use one personally. Pound show tooltip Hunter's Mark /cast Hunter's Mark /pet attack. I macro it together with pet attack, and anytime I'm grinding through mobs, especially when leveling, this is how I start encounters. And a few flare macros. There's nothing wrong with using flare as it is, if you like that, but I do like some of these macros. /cast target equals cursor in brackets flare. So this will flare where your mouse cursor is at. This saves you the step of having to click after using flare. It's good in a lot of situations, but there are times it sucks. Like if you go to place your flare and it ends up on the ceiling. You won't be able to check that ahead of time. So what I do is I actually use the basic flare and flare at me. So /cast target equals player in brackets. This drops flare directly on top of me. I find this one fairly useful in PvP, but I like to combine those into one macro. Pound show tooltip /cast in brackets mod shift comma target equals player flare. So I put this second empty bracket here. I don't know why, but this macro is broken without it. This will use flare normally when I click it. If I hold shift click, it will drop the flare directly on top of me. You can always swap the mod for mod control, mod alt, whatever the fuck you like. Additional focus target or mouse over macros. Okay, these aren't specific macros, but it should be mentioned. You can put just about any ability into a focus target or mouse over macro. I mainly do this for PvP, so Arcane Shot is a good example since it dispels. In PvP, I don't use the regular Arcane Shot button, I macro it like this. Pound show tooltip /cast in brackets mod shift comma target equals focus empty bracket again Arcane Shot, and I have this bound to the E key. So if I hit E, Arcane Shot goes off like normal. If I hold shift and hit E, my focus target is the one that gets hit by Arcane Shot. You could do the same thing with mouse over, so instead of target equals focus, it's target equal mouse over. With that, when I hold shift and hit E, I Arcane Shot whatever my cursor is on. If you want to put them on a different key entirely and I use a modifier, that works too. In PvE, I really don't use any of these. I know some people like to use them for things like Hunter's Mark. That's not a bad one if you aren't marking the main target. The only one I really have ready all the time is for Scare Beast. In PvP again, I macro a ton like this. Scatter Shot, Silencing Shot, Arcane Shot, Wing Clip, a whole lot of things. And just a couple of miscellaneous macros here. Eagle Eye, you should already have this one. Hunter Jesus is disappointed in you if you don't. Normally if you try to cast Eagle Eye a second time, it just cancels it. With this macro, it will let you recast Eagle Eye so you can chain them. Fairly useful. Weapon equip macros, I use this to swap between one-handers and two-handers. Sometimes if you just do /equip with the weapon names, it can put them in the wrong slots or just not even equip both. Obviously, put the names of your weapons in here. 16 in main hand and 17 is the offhand. Regular click puts on my one-handers, shift click is my two-hander. I also use a macro for trinkets, but it's really simple. Pound show tooltip /use 13. This will use whatever trinket is in the first trinket slot. So I always put my unused trinket there. If you have 2 unused trinkets like in PvP, you can make a second macro and just use 14. Or sometimes I'll put them together with a modifier. Just make sure you have a way to see the cooldown for the second trinket if you do that, since the tooltip will show the first one unless you're holding shift. Mount macro. Pretty easy, just swap the names for your mounts. Pound show tooltip /use in brackets flyable, your flying mount, and then your ground mount. I also like to combine aspect of the pack and aspect of the cheetah in one macro. It makes me feel nice. I do use a DPS cooldown macro sometimes. You don't always want to use this, so I still have all these abilities bound separately as well. Obviously, if you're not an orc, you don't want Blood Fury in here. You can put Berserking or just put I wish I had a DPS racial, something like that. Alright, that was an absolute assload of typing for me because that was a lot of macros. Let's move on to mods. Although, you know, I've been thinking. So I'm not going to cover the most basic of mods that everyone uses like DBM, and I'm not going to talk about graphical UI mods here. This is hunter specific mods, and there's really only 2, potentially 1 that I'm going to recommend here. WeakAuras, which will get its own section next, and WeaponSwingTimer. WeaponSwingTimer, or a similar mod like Yacht if that's still around, you probably already have. We just need a mod that will track our shots and potentially our swings. WeaponSwingTimer hasn't been updated in a really long time, but it seems to be working okay. We need this because we don't want to be clipping our auto shots. I've talked a lot about that in the rotation video already, so no reason to touch those tits twice. Which brings us to WeakAuras. WeakAuras can do a lot of things. If you can think of it, WeakAuras can probably make it happen. I'm not an expert with WeakAuras, I don't write any for it, but I have gone through a ton of hunter specific WeakAuras. Here's the ones that I think are best. Hunter ranged attack speed, I've talked about this one before. It will track your ranged attack speed in real time and display it on this bar. If you only use WeakAuras for one thing, it needs to be this. We need some way to not only watch what our auto shots are doing, but also the speed. This is the best one for me, but there are other ones out there. Like this one just called ranged attack speed. It just shows your attack speed. Really simple. I did have trouble with this one breaking and not updating, but no one else seems to have that problem, so it may or may not be totally broken and worthless. But if you want to do it with some goddamn style, you can use TBC Hunter AttackSpeedometer. Yeah, it's a speedometer for your ranged attack speed. I don't know if this is cool as shit or really stupid. Okay, it's really stupid. If you didn't like WeaponSwingTimer, you may love TBC Hunter Castbar. A lot of people really like this one, and I kind of like it. It compacts a lot of important stuff into a small space. Castbar, auto shot timer, swing timer, pretty nice. And even if you don't like that one, I have 2 other options for you. Rocky's TBC Hunter Castbar. I'm actually really liking this one. It does a good job of visually representing your auto shots and where your steady shots fit in them. I'm going to give this one a go for a while. But I also really like Deniros Hunter ranged attack bars. It's fairly similar to the Rockies one. Okay, and a quick few random WeakAuras I also really like. Hunter Freezing Trap Tracking. Good name. This just puts up a bar with a countdown showing the duration of your freezing trap. Makes it easy to track it. Misdirection Announcer. This just spits out into chat whenever somebody casts MD. It says who used MD and who they used it on. really good for making sure the other hunters are doing things right. And finally, Bouks buff duration tracker. This is a nice one to track specific buffs like rapid fire, DST proc, improved hawk, trinket procs, that sort of shit. When those attack speed related buffs are off in a separate place like this, it makes it a lot easier to anticipate attack speed changes. You can also manually add or remove any buffs you want to be tracked as well. Really nice. And my UI. For some reason, people ask about my UI a lot. Like, a lot. So I'm going to cover my UI from tip to butt. The first one down here is called Titan Panel Classic. You can have a bar down on the bottom, or you can have it up on the top if you like. Basically, this just displays a lot of different types of information that you get to choose. So there are these different little modules you can have in here. These are the ones that I like to have so that I can see my location, XP per hour, the loot type, but also if you click on that, it rolls for you. My current ammo, gold across different characters, different servers, you can configure that. My bag space, durability, and then performance. But there are other ones you can do on here, like you can put, like this will put a little button down here where it'll open up another mod instead of having to find the minimap button or type a command. It's highly configurable. I do really recommend it. I've used it forever. Another one I've used forever is my action bar add-on. This is called Dominos. It is highly configurable. I also really like how it gives you this grid to align everything up. There are some other add-ons that used to do that, but I couldn't find them anymore. Of course, you can change size, shape, the borders, and pretty much everything else. I like to have 2 bars here of 7 that go 1 through 6 plus button 3, and then I go Z through C. I keep all of these keybinds and layout the same across characters, so you can save this profile, and then so you start a new character, load that profile, and it'll automatically keep all your key bindings and the layout. It's very, very nice if you play multiple characters. So I keep all my actual abilities down here, and then the pet bar is right here. This also controls your bags. I put those over here. Normally, I actually like to have these hidden, so what that does is then you can't see them unless I mouse over it. And along with that, I keep my professions over here on a button just to access them easy, along with my mount button. And then for the unit frames, I use Zperl, which is another really, really old add-on. I like how highly configurable it is. I mean, look at all these options. Damn, that's a lot of shit. For the raid frames, I just keep them over here, kind of keep them out of the way. I'm not too worried about those. And then for my frames down here, I have my player character, my target, and then my target's target. You can go one farther and have targets if you want, but I don't really find that very useful. The default settings for Zperl I think are really good. About the only thing that I really change outside of, resizing and moving them is I move the buffs to above. I really like having the buffs above my unit frame, mainly because I keep my Castbar down here, and then we have a hunter bar over here. Other than that, I pretty much leave it as default. Like with Dominos, it does a really good job with profiles as well, so I like to keep these in line with my unit frames, so I just load that profile up on all my characters. Very smooth. For DPS meters, I'm using details right now, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter. They're all pretty much fine. I like recount as well. And I don't have it up because I'm not in a dungeon right now, but I do have a threat meter classic that'll pop up right here when I'm actually in a dungeon. For map add-on, doesn't really matter. Right now I'm using one called Leatrix. It's alright, but there are actually quite a few good map add-ons. For minimap add-ons though, I actually went through a couple and I really like this one the best. It's called Chinchilla. It's really nice and clean and gives you a lot of options. One thing I really like to do is be able to use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out, which Chinchilla will let me do that, and then I can just hide the plus and minus buttons on there. Really nice. And I've always been a fan of the kind of corner, half circle, half Jesus fish shape. I've always thought that just looks nice and clean. But it does give you a ton of options for the shape as well. You can go square, fully round, the tri-corner top right square. I've always liked that one as well. But yeah, I just like to keep it corner, bottom left round. Just looks really nice and clean. Another really nice thing about this is it will show you who has pinged on the map. That way you know who's doing it, because you know there are some assholes out there that will just ping for the fun of it. Well, now you know who it is. As for other major add-ons, there aren't that many. There's just a couple that I'll go over here. So obviously we want Attune and DBM or bigwigs, you know, you want stuff like that. So I'm not going to cover all that stuff. I would say Atlas Loot Classic is really nice. This is just a sort of loot browser, so you can check, you know, everything from boss drops to faction rewards, PvP rewards. It's really nice when you need to link something. And if you play a lot of alts, I do really recommend this one called Altoholic. So what this does is it will let you see your inventory, bank, mail, professions, pretty much anything you can think of for all of your characters. So even though I'm on my hunter here, I can see some of the shit that my rogue has. And just as nice, if you find like a recipe or a schematic and you're not sure, Altoholic will let you know if your alts know it, or if they'll be able to learn it in the future. Super nice if you see like a limited supply recipe somewhere. I love that add-on. Just a couple more small ones here. So this one I think it's just called Wide Quest Log. Just makes it a little bit easier to read your quest log. Pretty nice. This one here is called What Can I Train? It doesn't really do much when you're max level, but this will let you know what abilities are on your class trainer and at what level you'll be able to train them. Really nice when you're leveling a class you don't know much about, and it's like, do I want to go all the goddamn way to Orgrimmar to train? Is it going to be worth it? Well, you can just check right there. And the last one I'm going to mention is Minimap button. So what this does is it just takes all those buttons on your minimap and puts them in this little window. When you have a lot of add-ons, that is incredibly nice. And you may notice there's not a lot going on up around here. And I do that on purpose. I really like to keep most things below kind of like the lower 1/3 of the screen. Most of the things are going to happen in that center third. So I try to keep that as neat as possible. Sometimes I will put stuff up here, and occasionally I'll put like DBM notifications and stuff over here. Sometimes I've seen people put their unit frames up around the sides here. This gets really messy. So I would recommend going that route and keeping things out of that middle third. But that should just about cover it for my UI. I've been asked a lot on stream, so hopefully that covers it. And I don't get those questions anymore, but no, I'm still going to get them. And that's going to cover it for a Hunter's Guide to Mods, Macros, UI, and WeakAuras. Was it worth the wait? Probably not. This video took a long time to get out. Been busy working on other shit. You know how it goes. I hope it helped you out though. Got some new macros to use, new WeakAuras, or even just an idea on how to set up your own UI. If it didn't, well, shit, I guess that's why I put this video off as long as I did. If you enjoyed the video, hit that sub button, bell, like button, what the fuck is a macro button, share button, all that other shit. I appreciate each and every one I get. This channel even has memberships now. You can check them out by clicking the join button right by the sub button. It is absolutely the best way to support the channel, and you'll get some really cool emotes. Plus it's way better and cheaper than a Twitch sub. I stream right here on YouTube at least once a week. I hope you'll join me. And again, a massive thanks to Surfshark for the sponsor. Super happy to have them here. It is a VPN that I actually do use. I like it. In fact, I'm going to go watch Trailer Park Boys with Japanese subtitles right now. But that is going to be all for this one. I really appreciate you all watching, and I will see you all for the next one.